AM560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Yesterday, Bibi Netanyahu visiting the White House to talk Middle East peace with President Trump. And at their joint press availability, the president had this to say.
Everything getting solved. It's called peace in the Middle East. And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East. So this is far more than anybody expected, but the level of support that I've had from the nations in the Middle East and surrounding Israel and neighbors of Israel has been incredible. Every single one of them. Europe has been very much involved, and as I was called by many of the European leaders, most of them saying, is this true? Are you really doing peace in the Middle East? This is the most incredible thing we've heard. Some think it's the biggest thing they've ever heard. They called just to find out, was it just a rumor or is it actually done?
He also thanked Netanyahu for his constructive engagement.
I also want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu for agreeing to the plan and for trusting that if we work together, we can bring an end to the death and destruction that we've seen for so many years, decades, even centuries, and begin a new chapter of security, peace, and prosperity for the entire region.
And there is a lot of regional buy-in, reportedly. Qatar, Jordan, UAE, Indonesia, Pakistan, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, all welcoming Trump's 20-point plan to end the war in Gaza and try to establish a lasting peace in that region, although I'm a lot more skeptical than Trump is. I'm not ready to sign on to the prospect that what we're talking about here is, in this 20-point plan, is going to generate, quote unquote, eternal peace. That may be a bit grandiose, particularly against the backdrop of something else that bubbled to the surface. ArabCon 2025, ArabCon 2025. This is Arabic people getting together to advance their, political and cultural dialogue. That's the basic description that I read online of this conference. They had a panel discussion with ostensibly some Arab American leaders. And on the topic of October 7th, this was how the moderator and the panel tackle that question of the terrorist attack on October 7th.
We sometimes get uncomfortable talking about October 7th, and as Americans. But how much of that is sort of directly from the, I guess, magnitude of that it just created this question asking more than anything ever else has before. And are you seeing your colleagues feeling more empowered to say things, probably because of your steadfastness over all these years? And then finally, do you condemn October 7th?
I condemn Israel and the United States and all oppressions and imperial wars.
That's what I'm talking about.
Very good. That was an easy answer.
And I never ever condemn Palestinian resistance and anyone resistance around the world. Those who are here and who are around the world, write it up.
That's right.
Okay, so anyway, move on to the next question.
Condemning a terrorist attack is a punchline at ArabCon 2025. I assume that view is not limited to Arab Americans, and it includes many in the Middle East living in Islamic theocracies, many in the Middle East formerly living in Gaza, I suspect. For more on all this, we're pleased to be joined by Jonathan Tobin, editor-in-chief of the Jewish News Syndicate. Jonathan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Great to be with you.
So the 20-point plan, what is your assessment?
Well, like you, I'm a bit skeptical about President Trump's hyperbole. But if it worked, it would be a good thing. It would require Hamas to surrender and disarm and give up control of Gaza. It would mean the immediate freedom for the hostages, and it would put in place, a structure that would allow the Palestinians in Gaza to sort of create a normal life for themselves. The problem with that is not President Trump's intentions here. They're obviously good. And but the thing is, this is just the latest. This isn't something new. This has been tried in various forms for the last 80, really 100 years to give the Palestinians a chance to choose peace. And they have said no every single time, not because the offers weren't generous enough or because people didn't trust each other. It was because their national identity is inextricably tied up with this century-old war against the Jews and their belief that they have the right to do anything, commit any atrocity like that clip that you just played in order to throw the Jews out of their own homeland and kill as many of them as possible. So in order for us to believe this is going to work, which if it did, let me just specify that would be good. You have to believe that we're on the edge of a sea change a change in Palestinian political culture. You have to believe that there is a mythical body of non-political Palestinian technocrats available to run Gaza who are not tainted by a belief in Israel's destruction and in terrorism. You'd have to believe the international community and the United Nations will adopt policies to advance the cause of peace rather than enabling the perpetuation of this century-old war. You have to believe that this board of peace that Trump is going to chair and that Tony Blair will be part of will have the will and the ability to supervise what will go on in Gaza, that this international security force will secure Gaza and make sure Hamas does disarm, and you have to believe that Qatar, which is the primary funder of Hamas and of Islamist extremism around the world, which is part of the Muslim Brotherhood, and the whole push for Sharia law and, hatred of the West, let alone Israel, you have to believe that Qatar is a good partner, as Trump foolishly believes, and a partner for peace. That's an enormous leap of faith. That's a lot of ifs.
That's a lot to sign on to.
Hooray!
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So why is Bibi signing on to it? I mean, he just gave a speech at the UN last week in which he said something that is not new either, but remains true, which is the problem with all of these Western European countries promoting a two-state solution is that the Palestinians don't want one. It's not that we don't, it's that the Palestinians don't because they want the elimination of Israel. That's always been the problem, and it still is the problem. And if it's still the problem, and all we need to do, then the idea that all we need to do is get these countries in the region to agree that I mentioned, and Hamas to sign on, which is sort of a grotesque aspect of this as well, then why even go through this charade if you're Bibi?
Well, first, he was certainly right to defy the world and defy the UN when he spoke, because Trump was right to basically flip off the UN when he spoke there last week.
Right.
The reason why he's going on along with it, well, it's pretty clear. I mean, Trump is the most pro-Israel president we've ever had. He's earned some trust. And he also has a lot of leverage over Israel. Yeah. And so Netanyahu is really not in a position to say, prove it, buddy. Why should I do? Your plan is really dumb. The people you're trusting don't deserve to be trusted. He's got to go along with it. He's got to give it a chance to fail, like so many other peace plans have failed because the Palestinians, there's a famous quote where, the late Abba Eban, who was a longtime Israeli foreign minister and diplomat, said that the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. That was very clever, but it was also kind of wrong because the Palestinians didn't view any of those offers of statehood and peace and two states and coexistence as opportunities because they're not for anything. They don't think peace should involve the existence of a Jewish state no matter where its borders are drawn. So, but, Netanyahu is giving Trump a chance to fail. You think this can work? Fine. And Trump, has not only earned some trust from Israel for all the stuff he's done while he was president, which he has explicitly said that he will do what no previous American president who produced a peace plan promised to do or ever did, which is to say, if and when, and I think it's more a matter of when than if, the Palestinians and Hamas renege on this plan, even if they agree to it, when they break their word, as Arafat did in the 90s when Clinton, promoted the Oslo peace process. Yeah. Trump is ready to say, Netanyahu, finish the job. I'm not going to give them any leeway to lie and prevaricate. If they don't do everything I say they have to do, all bets are off, and Israel goes back in and wipes them out. That gives Trump that not only is the right thing to do, it gives Trump the ability to say to Netanyahu, you should trust me. And Netanyahu wants to trust Trump, even though I can tell you he doesn't believe this is going to work any more than you or I does.
Well, but the other problem, right, is that these malign forces, these terrorist organizations, can wait Trump out, and when Trump goes away, we'll see what comes after President Trump in 28. But we can wait, and how many? What was like 40% of the UN General Assembly walked out of Benjamin Netanyahu's speech. So between Western Europe and Islamic theocracies, they still have a network that they can potentially resuscitate, both a formal network that supports them as well as appeasers like the Western Europeans. They still have that they can lean on to restart this in 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that the long war of the Islamists against Israel, as well as their long war against the West and the United States, is not ending here. Trump may think he's creating eternal peace, and God bless him for wanting to create eternal peace. And, we should all pray that, it all happens and the hostages are released and Hamas disarms. And you're right. 3 years from now, 4 years from now, there's still going to be a conflict. We're still going to be talking, if we should all have, as my mother would have said, we should all live and be well, and we'll still be talking about the same stuff in some ways. But this deal will prove to work or not work long before that. This deal, we'll know whether this deal works by the end of the year. There's no question about that. Either the hostages get released and Hamas disarms, or they don't. Mm-hmm. And that's, Netanyahu can, Netanyahu probably thinks he's going to still be prime minister of Israel 4 years from now because, as I like to, it's not just that he hasn't groomed a successor. He doesn't believe in the concept, and they have no term limits in Israel. But he'd probably despite his critics, he may well win the next election anyway. But the point is, this deal, it's deal or no deal, like the game show. We're going to find out long before, J.D. Vance is hoping to win the 2028 presidential election. This is going to happen very, very soon. And I believe we can trust Trump that far. I don't trust Trump's judgment about Qatar. I think he's foolish. Some of his people like Witkoff have been compromised by their business dealings with them. But I trust Trump well enough that he will know whether Hamas is going to agree with this and whether they immediately, and that's the good part about the plan, the part that's not stupid, is he says the hostages have to be released immediately. Hamas has to disarm right away. It's not in 5 years. That we'll know about. So I have confidence that if this is going to fail, and it's, as I said, it's more likely to be a when rather than an if, we'll know, and Trump will back Israel. Just because once again, if it doesn't work, once again, the Palestinians will have rejected peace. And if anything, if we know anything about Donald Trump, he won't forgive them for that.
Jonathan Tobin, editor-in-chief of Jewish News Syndicate. Jonathan, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Jonathan Tobin joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at TruePowerGenerator.com. That's TRUPowerGenerator.com. Plus, 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty.